in the year 2000, I was transitioning from teaching into ministry of word and sacrament, having worked as a teacher for 17 years, latterly as a principal teacher of guidance, which is now known as pastoral care. My experience of school chaplaincy had been as a pupil many years before, and as a teacher, sitting awkwardly with classes through religious assemblies with the local minister, who attempted to connect with 500 young people, sometimes with the aid of a shonky visual aid from the platform at the front of the hall. Perhaps unsurprisingly, negotiating my new role as a trainee and then parish minister, school chaplaincy was the area I felt most nervous and uncertain about. What was I offering? How would I be received? How could I be relevant to pupils, parents and staff, recognising that we're always in school as a guest? I used the opportunity of a practical theology dissertation to explore these questions and others in 3 of the most diverse secondary schools in Glasgow. In one, Hillhead High School, at that time there were 180 different languages being spoken, and the pupils self-identified as Muslim, Buddhist, atheist, agnostic, as well as Christian of many varieties. I talked to the head teachers, religious studies and guidance teachers, and small groups of senior students. I looked at the legislation and advice around religious observance and the 5 to 14 curriculum, which had come into place in the late 1990s. And I began to forge for myself an identity and a role I was comfortable with, that would both represent the parish church in the community and that I felt would be helpful to school communities, both primary and secondary. Since 2004, I've been parish minister in Cranhill, one of the Church of Scotland's priority areas, and I'm chaplain in Cranhill Primary and part of the team at Smithy Croft Secondary School. I have a colleague who's an MDS, who's a part-time family worker, and she works a lot in the primary school, supporting staff, parents and pupils. And she is currently on furlough, so is not part of any conversation about what coming back to school might be like. The thoughts I share this morning are not an attempt to persuade anyone to do things the way I do, but I hope to open up some questions for your own consideration and to spark off some thoughts about how to navigate the next very difficult period of time in the life of our country and all schools in the light of COVID-19. Before I share my thoughts further, I'd like to pinch and adapt a technique from our esteemed moderator, Martin Fair, and ask you to use the chat function to put up 3 words, not 7, 3 words which sum up school chaplaincy for you. The chat box, if you've not found it before, is a speech bubble at the bottom of your screen. If you click on it, you can send a message to everyone, and I'd like, please, to have 3 words. So there's Douglas straight off the bat: fear and trepidation, and isn't a very helpful one. Welcome, responsibility, joy, storytelling, singing, laughter, and you can see how many of these are relational. So we'll just let you keep doing that, and I'll begin to share bridge, partner, and space holder. I know I've cheated with that last one. It's got a hyphen in it. The head teacher I spoke to all those years ago, all different and from different perspectives on faith, all emphasised how valuable they found their school chaplains as a bridge between the wider community and the school, representing the community to the school and the school to the community in a number of different ways, including taking part in social and community events, letting the congregation and wider community know what's going on in the school, and at times reflecting back to the school things that have been circulating in the community that they're perhaps not so aware of. I think in an age of social media, that perhaps happens more now. Approaches to bullying and the creeping cost of the school day are both issues that at times I have fed back about. It never fails to amuse me when kids in the cafe in our church building say, "Hey, you come to my school." Or in school, the Girls' Brigade girls say, "Hey, you come to our Girls' Brigade." So there is that kind of bridging, crossover kind of role. When members of the local congregation get involved in the life of the school, attending tea parties and performances, reading with kids or teaching knitting, that strengthens the bridge. When the school visit the cafe or the community shop or come to learn about the church building, that too strengthens the bridge. Sometimes there's a feeling around that we live in an increasingly secular society and that the values that we as Christians hold dear are being squeezed out, and that our job is to try to find ways of keep putting them back in. I don't find that approach helpful. The values of Curriculum for Excellence and other initiatives such as Rights Respecting Schools, based on the United Nations Rights of the Child, provide a lot of common ground that we can stand on and work on together, even if there are areas of divergence. My go-to text for ministry is Raymond Fung's wee book, The Isaiah Vision, which uses Isaiah's vision of God's flourishing community in Isaiah chapter 65 to show how there is common ground with all people of goodwill who are looking for human and environmental flourishing. And that's really helped me understand my rootedness as a Christian and the difference that that makes, and then also the common ground that we share together. There's a huge area of overlap with a non-denominational school where adults and children of different faiths and none are seeking to grow spiritually as well as educationally, physically, and mentally. For me, this is kingdom work. The slide I'm going to share next is an infographic from Cranhill Primary School, which I've had absolutely nothing to do with, no input into it at all. This is their recovery curriculum, and it was shared recently on Twitter. And you can see that it's their thinking about how they are going to approach return. And right at the top there, our recovery curriculum is centered on love. And love is absolutely core to who I am and what I do too. So there's lots of common ground there. I've already reached out to the head teacher who knows what we've offered in the past, story times, philosophy of inquiry groups, input to RE and PSHE curriculums, Lego club, help with the Parents' Council, presence as an extra body on trips and excursions or in the nurture room, but perhaps most importantly, a listening ear to staff and pupils. And so there's lots of opportunity for partnership. And if those who lead the SU group and the Seasons for Growth group are willing to partner on the basis of our shared foundation of love, then I'm up for that too. I've nearly reached the end of my time, and I've not yet mentioned assemblies or religion's observance or time for reflection. I've never felt this is the most important part of what I do as chaplain, although it's possibly still the most visible. My relationship with assemblies has been changing, partly because of Curriculum for Excellence. There's so much emphasis now on young people doing things for themselves that I find that the traditional assembly format is under strain, even for teachers who are delivering in that way. And in recent times, I've struggled to find a format that engages and involves young people without spending hours of extra preparation time with classes whose curriculum is already very full. And I have a sense that in the next wee while, when gathering collectively is going to be so difficult, that assemblies might be even less important. Perhaps in the next wee while, workplace chaplaincy, with that intentional loitering in teachers' lounges and wee conversations, which can be followed up. How are you doing? Or holding a space with quiet music and candles, which can be a prayer space as well as a yoga and meditation space, as Cranhill Primary are already intending. For children to share their concerns. Finding ways to do that will perhaps be the offering that I can make. But I'll do as I'm asked, and I'll offer who I am, and I'll adapt to whatever physical distancing rules there are. And that's going to be quite a challenge when you start to think through the various materials and things, even like this tent that's on the screen now, that's, never mind the lit candles, which are just not going to be possible for the next while. So if I played guitar or could coach football, perhaps that's what I would offer. I can help with the eco committee or the fair trade group or the school newspaper or a poetry group. I can aim to be a non-anxious presence. I can keep singing fishy songs. I can offer some non-violent communication, NVC skills, or some capacitar techniques, both of which I'm trained in. As far as I can, I'll bring my whole self in as professional a way as is possible. I think Steve is going to talk about grief and trauma a little bit more. And I'd like to do some further thinking and training around that area once we see what schools are like. I'm interested in something that Paul McEwen from Belhelvie mentioned in Ministers' Discussion Forum about using Seasons for Growth during lockdown online. And I'd like to see some sort of support grow up for sharing ideas around what's possible and what works. At the moment, I see the Central Church's ability to do this as very weak. So I think they're going to need some suggestions and help. And I think we're also going to have to find ways of doing it ourselves. I would go as far as to say that I'm not going to try to do online assemblies unless I'm asked to. I am going to try to continue to be a bridge and a partner and a non-anxious space holder as much as I can. And I'm holding on to the central thing in our recovery curriculum. Our recovery curriculum is centered on love. Thank you.